So is the relationship open emotionally, or is it just physically open?
And the effect it had on me sexually, you know, from performance to being with women to being a top.
And you even had some shenanigans at Sizzle where I was looking at you like, watch you want a skank. Welcome to 3LW TV. I'm Lonell Williams, and welcome to our very first book club discussion. I am so excited that so many people have responded in kind to the book club. People have been asking about it for a long time, and so I finally decided to do it. And I'm really thrilled that you guys have really embraced it this way. And I'm so excited to talk to the author of our first pick.
Growing up a biracial child in Charleston, South Carolina, G. Smalls often had trouble feeling like he fit in. Through the ups and downs, though, he always persevered. Marriage, divorce, fatherhood, child custody battles, and his husband of nearly 12 years have led him to a space of true authenticity. He chronicles his remarkable journey in his ever-so-candid memoir, Black Enough, Man Enough, Embracing My Mixed Race and Fluid Sexuality.
Please welcome to 3LW TV the author of Black Enough, Man Enough, Embracing My Mixed Race and Fluid Sexuality, the one and only Mr. G. Smalls. Welcome.
Yes. Welcome back to you. I'm so glad to be the first one to bust your cherry after your what do you call it? Your abstinence period. We're gonna loosen it up for you, okay?
It feels good to have your cherry popped after all these years.
I'm excited to be able to bring this back with you and talk about my book. And I know you've read it, and I haven't had a whole lot of interviews where people have actually read and dug into the book. So I'm really, really excited to talk to you about it.
Good, because I've got questions about some things. I was like, well, if he's just gonna put it in there, I may as well ask about it because he put it out there.
You
right?
might as well ask about it.
One of the things I think that really struck me initially was how, as kids, like what happens in our environment, what parents say and what adults in our world say, how it really truly affects us. And one of the things I noticed from you very early on, you had your white friend who's, I think it was his grandfather, who said you never should have been born. And then you had a teacher who said you shouldn't be going to, you didn't see that you would go to college, didn't want to put you in a class. If you had listened to these adults, you would have been so much, you would have been stifled even more. So at that age, what gave you the drive, especially with the teacher who said, no, you don't need to be in this class. And you're like, no, I'm going to go to the advanced honors English class anyway, even if I fail. What did order to do that at such a young age?
It was, Hillman was a big thing back then. Hillman kind of introduced a lot of us to college, and it did for me. And it was something I really wanted to do. And so for her to tell me that, and I was also very rebellious probably, at this age. And I wanted to prove her wrong. And although it ended up being that I failed the class and I ended up not taking any more advanced English classes since then, I think it still showed me that I was able to take risk, and it didn't break me just because I quote unquote failed at it. You know what I mean?
So then how did you break the cycle so that you would not have that happen to your son?
I was very conscious of not having that be my son's story. Now, we all got a story. That doesn't mean that some things that I've said to him or expressed to him didn't have an impression or a negative impression on him like some of the things had on me. I did my best, but again, I'm only human. And as a parent, we're only human. So, our relationship with our child is just that, a relationship.
And another thing I think that it can define, but it doesn't have to necessarily cripple our story, are some of the traumas that we experience as in childhood. And you experienced several, but one that stuck out to me, Bernetta, I think was the name.
Bernetta, yeah.
What she did to you, you didn't even realize was a violation until much later.
Very much later.
How did you move forward past that experience after once you realized what happened?
This is a trauma that happened to me, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't remember how many years it went on. But it was something that it was normal to me. You know what I mean? She wasn't the only girl or child that I had some sexual relations with, if you will. That was a very traumatic experience for me because it was against my will, but it was something that kids do, if you will. And me as an adult, I didn't come to terms with this until like my late 30s. Like, and the effect it had on me sexually, from performance to being with women to being a top, all of these different things that experience had this effect on me. When I was able to realize it, it was almost like it was a light bulb went off for me. Yeah. And me as an adult being able to see this girl wasn't that much younger than me. I was 7, she was 10. She was a little girl as well. While she was a big, mean, bully girl to me, she was still a little girl. She had probably been molested herself. She had probably been taken advantage of herself, and she learned it from somebody. So I'm sure there's so much trauma that she had experienced to even led her up to that experience. But for me as an adult, being able to look at that, I almost felt really, really great about being able to discover that trauma that I was not completely aware of, because I did see how it played so much into my relationships and everything. So I was able to almost heal like that.
You said this affected your relationships. So you move into high school, you start dating Carla, and you break, and throughout your life, you break up, you get together, you break up, you get together, and you realize that this is a pattern that is repeating from your parents. But when did you first make the correlation you were repeating the same pattern that your parents had?
I realized that I was repeating the same pattern outside of Carla, because I had been with Carla for a while, right? And so I would always go back and forth with her. And then when I started dating more in my 20s, I started doing the same thing in my other relationships. And then when I started dating men, I started doing things in the same thing with the men that I had. This my first boyfriend, if you will. We used to break up and go back and forth together too. I didn't realize that it was a pattern for me until writing the book. I didn't realize that I was doing the same thing as I saw growing up until I wrote the book. It's like you don't realize how much impression your parents' habits and relationship has on you in your own relationships until you really think about that shit. Until you really I always tell people, if you write your story, you will have no idea of how many patterns we have in our life. So I didn't really realize that until I started writing out my stories and writing my mom's story.
Your whole journey to self-acceptance and self-love has been truly, to me, it's been phenomenal. I thought I knew you, but after I read this book, I was like, now I feel like I know you.
Yeah.
And there's so many intersections that people can relate to, which is why I chose the book, because most people might look at the title and just think it's a racial story, or is it a sexuality story? It's yeah. No matter where you fit in, there's something in here that you can definitely relate to.
Yeah.
Do you think with your relationship with Juan, your husband, that you have broken this cycle of
definitely
running? Okay.
Definitely, and he helped me to break the cycle. This relationship has helped me to see myself in so many ways, and has helped me to be able to dig into a lot of these old wounds in so many ways. And one thing one reason why I am able to break that cycle with Juan, because I have been able to we can be completely transparent and vulnerable with each other without being rejected. And I had that sense of security with him, that no matter what, I know I'm not going to be unloved by him. And because I love myself, no matter what I have to say or what I've done or what I've been through, I know I'm still worthy of love. I've been able to understand with Juan that the purpose of our relationship is for us to trigger and bring up trauma that needs to be healed. And that's never going to feel good. It's going to come in the form of, I don't trust you, or I feel insecure about something, or you don't care about me. It's going to come up in all those ways between the relationship. But I know that it's bigger than what we're going through at the moment. And at the end of the day, it's about me. It's about how the situation is making me feel and why it's making me feel that way. And now that I figure out that why it's making me feel that way, I can have compassion for myself.
Okay, so let's dig into your dating life, because that's what everybody, especially your marriage, but even before your marriage, you obviously you were dating, you were on the down low for a little while.
Right.
And you dated a few people, and you even had some shenanigans at Sizzle where I was looking at you like, watch you little skank. One of the things, especially for same gender loving men, I remember in particular one story that you talked about. I believe the guy's name was Raphael, and you guys were dating. Like, you had sex, you had unprotected sex, and then the next morning you said that, or one of you said to the other, don't worry, I'm clean. Clean meaning, I guess, negative, or
yeah,
I don't have any STIs. When do you think it's important, or people should have that discussion? After the crime is done and kind of dismiss it with I'm clean, or should this be when I say this, I'm talking about STI status. Should that be something that we discuss beforehand? It's like awkward when you're hot and in the moment. Who wants to have the killjoy talking about their status?
Well, first off, we're not going to use the word clean. That's definitely very stigmatizing, and it was a very stigmatizing for me to say at the time, but it is where I was at the time. I was ignorant at the time. And so I just want to say that. But I think that it depends on the person. To be honest, you can answer that question for you. I really feel like everybody's responsible for their own health, and that includes your own sexual health. So some people are really extremely concerned about STIs and getting STIs and whatever the case may be. And those type of people, I assume, would want to ask those questions before it happens, or or protect themselves enough in a way where if that should come up, it's not as concerning. But you also have some people that do not care that much about STIs, and then that might not even ever ask you. They're going to make sure that their health is always taken care of, and they're not concerned about what you're doing with you. And if something happens, then they'll take care of it. And that's how it may be. So I don't really think there's a right or wrong answer. I think we could get caught up too much into what is right and what is wrong. But I do think that you need to be honest with yourself. And for me, I wasn't honest with myself, because if I was, that situation wouldn't have played out like that. If I was so concerned about what he could give me, then I would have talked to him about his sexual health, or used a condom, and I didn't.
So now, one of the bombshells that's come out about in the book that everybody's talking about, obviously, your open relationship with your husband, Vaughn.
We started opening up our relationship, and when I say opening up, I mean inviting, having sex outside of the relationship. About year 5. We've been together for almost 6 years now, 12 and a half years. So it's been over 7 years now of us navigating this open relationship situation. And so there's been many, many dynamics of what that looked like. It started off because I am a completely versed guy. Juan is not. It wasn't at the time. And although, we usually try to work through it between us, it wasn't working. And so he allowed me to go out and fulfill myself in that way. And so that first rule was, I can go out and penetrate who I want to penetrate. He was not allowed to do anything because he was getting satisfied at home. And I had to tell him right away who it was. It couldn't be somebody who we knew. It couldn't be boom, it couldn't be bam. Throughout those years and over the years, we have changed rules. We have completely closed it at one point. Whatever we did, what made us feel comfortable at the time in our relationship. I mean, relationships and creating these rules and boundaries is all about making each other feel secure and comfortable in the relationship. In the beginning, those were the set of rules that made us completely comfortable and secure within the relationship. And over the past 7 years, those things have changed.
When you have these dalliances outside, it didn't seem like maybe sexual protection was discussed. You guys have a rule for that? You must use protection outside the relationship?
Yeah, we have that. Yes, we had to use a condom. Like, yeah, we have all of those things.
So is the relationship open emotionally, or is it just physically open?
So I will say that Juan and I have grown to a place where we don't have rules on each other. We don't feel any need to tell each other what we can or what we cannot do. We are in a place of acceptance of one another. And we don't try to control ourselves emotionally. I've never had a boyfriend or a relationship outside of the relationship. Neither has he. We never had one together. Our relationship that just hasn't happened. Will it happen one day in 5, 10 years from now? The hell if I know. When him and I first got together, I would never even thought that, I would have sex with another person outside of him. Like, that's where I was back in, 2008. Here it is in 2020. I feel differently. I don't know how I'm gonna feel in 2025 or 2030, but we haven't been in a situation where I'm like, oh God, I'm falling in love with somebody and he's falling in love with somebody. It just hasn't been anything like that situation. We're still very much in love with each other, and I mean, it's been fine and enough. And what we do is what we do,
What are your DMs looking like?
Well, the DMs ain't that much different than it was before the book came out. People gonna go after what they want to go after. You know what I'm saying? So I won't say it's looking much different. I will say people have like, have said, now can I get in between that? And you would think that people think that because we're open, that means we're having sex every day of the week with all these people, but that's really not the case. It could be on fire one day, just depending upon what kind of picture I post that day.
In your marriage vows, you said that you would not hold grudges going forward. How do you manage that when you're really pissed about something?
I mean, of course, vows are a work in progress all the time. So have we held grudges against each other? Hell yes. I mean, resentment is real. And, sometimes people don't even realize that they can be resentful of something because they say it doesn't bother me. Oh, that doesn't bother me. But it does. And that resentment builds up. And it happens because we're human. But we talk it out when we get through it. Sometimes we're not even, I always tell people think that good communication is being able to tell a person what's on your mind, and now I'm a great communicator. But that's not just only the case. That's also being able to listen. That's also being able to pick up nonverbal communication and knowing how and understanding how a person communicates. You can work on communication and do things to make it better, but at the core, many of us have learned to communicate in certain ways since we were children. I know when Juan is open for communication. I know his nonverbal communication, and I can read that. He can do it within me. And so I think it's important that we both realize we don't take things personal. We do our best not to take things personal.
And therapy, I think, has helped a lot. You two are very, very big proponents of therapy.
Yes, very much so. I mean, I love therapy. I started going to therapy in my first marriage when I was 21 or 22. And then I started going by myself. And then Juan and I, in year 2, we started going to therapy. And it's been helpful for us. And so now we get to a point where we go, because there are those points where you get connected and you get disconnected and just in the ebbs and flow in life. And so sometimes when we feel like we reach a period in our relationship where we're like kind of stagnant, then we will go to the therapist to try to work that knot out, if you will. And so now we kind of rely on her when we aren't able to get through those patches.
Do you consider your spiritual walk to be more spiritual and less religious?
I'm definitely spiritual. I think we're all spiritual, so it's not like I can be spiritual, can't be spiritual. We're all spiritual beings. But I practice spirituality, yes. And it's, when it comes to religion, I grew up in religion, not a Bible-beating household by any means, but, the Lord and Jesus Christ was definitely our Lord and Savior in our house. And so I grew up with that religious thinking, but probably in my early 20s is when I really started to think outside of the religious box, if you will, and just kind of really discover what, spirituality and God meant for me.
Like myself, you are a very avid and I would say great manifester, from your Gentleman's Ball to your Virgil's Gullah Bar and Kitchen restaurant. All of these things started out as visualizations, and you've actually been able to manifest them. And I've had the opportunity actually to have a planning session with you, and we were manifesting doing our vision boards together. What would you offer to someone, I guess, if they were interested in trying to make things manifest in their lives that just aren't happening for them?
So one thing that I practice, I try to practice daily, and I fall short sometimes too. Sometimes things are not manifesting as quickly as I would like them to be, or in a way in which I would like them to be. But affirmations are really, really big for me. I actually have a list of affirmations in my phone that go off every 2 hours that reminds me, and I read them off. I try to, sometimes I ignore it, read them off every 2 hours, and that's, I am a millionaire. I am an executive producer and cast member on a docuseries. I am a restaurateur. All of those things that I am, and I know that I am, I repeat those things to myself, and I try to feel those things about myself, because feeling it is the true manifestation. You have to feel it. You can say what you want, but if you don't really believe it and feel it, then that's going to slow your manifestation down. Because I can easily say I am a millionaire, but do I really believe I'm going to be a millionaire? How can I really believe that I could be a millionaire? I surround myself around millionaires. And so I always try to surround myself around people, and that can be in person or especially on social media. People don't realize what a huge impact social media has in our manifestation. If you are following a lot of mess on social media and you are scrolling all day, every day, it's going to make you feel a certain way. It's going to get you into your emotions. Those, you're going to attract mess into your life. If you're constantly following spiritual people or following people that are living out dreams or who are being the way you want to be, then those people and those social media posts are going to help you manifest those things in your life. The things you listen to are going to help you manifest and help you believe and feel. So those, I would say, are the primary things. And lastly, gratitude. That's probably the most important one, is gratitude. You have to really feel grateful for all that you already have, so the universe will allow you to have more. But if you're, feeling down and out about your situation all the time, sometimes you will, but when you get stuck, you're going to manifest more situations that's going to make you feel that way. So I think it's important to take inventory of your life often on all of the things that make your life good.
I love that you use affirmations, and affirmations are really are good or easier to do when things are going well. But what affirmations did you use, say, when you were at your lowest, or say like in the middle of your child custody battles, when you were going back and forth to your hearings? Were you using affirmations to get through that process?
I wasn't even in affirmation mode during that time, really. I would say I prayed a lot. I did talk to Spirit a lot, but I did not use affirmations back then, to be honest with you.
This has just been wonderful. There's so much we could go on and on for everybody. I still want y'all to read this, if you haven't already. But for those of you who have read it, I appreciate your feedback and your questions. Is there anything you want to add before we close out, Mr. Smalls?
Well, the one thing I want people to get out of the book, I know that I'm going to touch on a lot of emotions and things in relationships that we all go through. My situations may not be the same. I mean, you may not agree with in decisions that I've made in my life in reading the book. But at the end of the day, I want people to get that the book is really about being authentic and knowing that is enough.
We thank you so much. I mean, like I said, just an amazing book. I mean, you really just laid it out on the line. I had to go back, I've been writing my memoir, and I was like, oh, child, you got to go back and need more dirt.
Dig deeper.
You got to dig a little deeper. But I thank you, and I thank you for just sharing this wonderful story and really just giving us so many nuggets of truth. And the road to self-acceptance is just so beautifully illustrated the way you've woven it together here in this
you.
book. So continue success. Thanks
Thank
again
you.
for being part of the 3LW TV Book Club.
You're welcome.
I'm Lonell Williams. Always stand in your light.